Imagine surviving a brutal battle. You marched for days under the burning sun. You fought enemies who wanted you dead. You watched friends fall beside you. And then, after all that, you are told to line up. Not to receive medals, not to rest, but to draw lots. If fate turns against you, your own comrades will beat you to death. Not because you deserted, not because you betrayed Rome, but because discipline demands blood. This was decimation, the most feared punishment in the Roman army. A punishment so cruel that even hardened Roman soldiers prayed never to witness it. A system where 1 in every 10 men was selected to die by the hands of those who survived. Today, we explore the dark reality behind one of history's most terrifying military practices. Why did Rome use it? How did it work? And did it truly make the Roman army stronger, or simply more brutal? This is the story of decimation. The Roman army was not just a fighting force. It was a machine built on absolute obedience. Rome did not conquer the ancient world through numbers alone. It conquered through discipline, organization, and fear. Every soldier, from the lowest recruit to the highest centurion, was expected to obey orders without question. Failure was not just weakness, it was a crime. Unlike many ancient armies, Roman soldiers were professionals. They trained constantly, they followed strict rules, and they lived under constant threat of punishment. Minor offenses could earn beatings or pay cuts. Serious crimes could mean execution. But nothing inspired fear like decimation. The word decimation comes from the Latin decimatio, meaning removal of a tenth. When a unit showed cowardice, mutiny, desertion, or disobedience, Rome did not punish individuals. Instead, it punished the group. The condemned unit was assembled. They were divided into groups of 10. Each group drew lots. One man, the unlucky 10th, was chosen. And then, in the most horrifying twist of all, the remaining 9 soldiers were ordered to execute him, usually with clubs or stones. No swords, no mercy, no honor, only terror. To modern minds, decimation seems senselessly cruel. But to Rome, it served several purposes. A. Collective responsibility. Roman commanders believed that fear kept men in line. If one soldier fled, the entire unit paid the price. This ensured soldiers watched each other closely. Cowardice became dangerous, not just to the individual, but to everyone around him. B. Psychological control. Decimation didn't just kill men, it destroyed morale. Survivors were forced to live with the guilt of killing their comrades. The memory stayed with them forever. The message was clear: fear Rome more than the enemy. C. A last resort. Decimation was rare. Roman generals knew its dangers. Overusing it could break an army completely. That's why it was reserved for extreme cases, when discipline collapsed or authority was openly challenged. Decimation followed a terrifying ritual. First, the accused unit was isolated from the rest of the army. Then, the soldiers were divided into groups of 10. Lots, often stones or marked pieces of wood, were placed in a container. Each man drew one. Silence followed. When a man realized he had drawn the marked lot, he knew his fate. There was no appeal, no trial, no escape. The remaining 9 were ordered to kill him. If they refused, they risked joining him. The condemned man was beaten to death with clubs, slowly and painfully. Afterward, the surviving soldiers were punished further. They received reduced rations, often barley instead of wheat, and were forced to camp outside the main army, exposed and humiliated. Decimation did not end with death. It lingered. A. Crassus and the Slave Revolt. One of the most famous uses of decimation occurred under Marcus Licinius Crassus During the revolt led by Spartacus in 71 BCE, Roman legions repeatedly failed against the rebel slaves. Discipline collapsed. Soldiers retreated. Crassus responded with terror. He ordered decimation. Entire units were punished. Soldiers were beaten to death by their own brothers in arms. The effect was immediate. Fear returned. Discipline tightened. And eventually, Spartacus was defeated. But the cost was enormous, both in lives and morale. Even Julius Caesar, known for his harsh discipline, avoided decimation whenever possible. Caesar understood loyalty. He preferred rewards, speeches, and shared hardship to inspire his men. When his legions mutinied, he shamed them rather than slaughtered them. This tells us something important. Even Romans knew decimation was dangerous. Imagine being a Roman legionary facing decimation. You may have fought bravely. You may have followed orders. But none of that matters. Your fate depends on chance. You draw a lot and survive. Then you are handed a club. In front of you stands a friend, someone who marched beside you, someone who saved your life in battle. And now, Rome orders you to kill him. This was not discipline. This was psychological warfare. Many historians believe decimation caused long-term trauma among survivors, weakening units instead of strengthening them. In the short term, yes, decimation restored discipline quickly. Soldiers obeyed orders out of fear. But in the long term, its effectiveness is questionable. It destroyed trust. It bred resentment. It shattered morale. Armies function best on unity. Decimation replaced unity with terror. As the Roman Empire evolved, commanders relied less on decimation and more on professional discipline and incentives. By the imperial period, decimation became extremely rare. As Rome expanded, its armies grew more complex. Soldiers became long-term professionals with pensions and land rewards. Killing trained soldiers was no longer practical. Gradually, decimation faded into legend, a symbol of Rome's early brutality rather than its lasting strategy. But its memory endured. Modern armies emphasize leadership, morale, and accountability. Collective punishment of this scale is now considered a war crime. Yet the concept of decimation survives, at least linguistically. Today, we use the word to mean massive destruction. Few realize its origin lies in one of the darkest practices in military history. Decimation was not just punishment, it was a message written in blood, delivered by fear, and remembered for centuries. It reveals the true nature of Roman power, brilliant, disciplined, and brutally unforgiving. Rome built an empire that lasted hundreds of years, but it did so by demanding absolute obedience, even at the cost of humanity. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson of all, because when discipline relies on terror, victory always comes at a terrible price. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the darkest side of Roman history, like the video, subscribe, and comment below. Would fear like this make you a better soldier or destroy you?